Before you listen to the Tech Talk Daily podcast, I have to ask, are the high levels of uncertainty you're experiencing keeping you from making bold moves? Are you able to clearly see and act on the game-changing opportunities the pandemic has created? I'm Daniel Burris, serial entrepreneur, global technology futurist, and disruptive innovation expert, and right now, you have a choice to make. You can react to problems and disruptions after they happen, or you can learn to accurately anticipate disruptions before they disrupt and identify and pre-solve problems before they happen, giving you the ability to turn disruptive change into your biggest advantage. If you want to take control of your future and make a significant impact now and in the years ahead, join thousands of leaders from around the world by becoming a member of my Anticipatory Leader System, where you'll get the latest insights, processes, tools, and virtual coaching that will give you the certainty and confidence you need to actively shape a better future for you and your organization. Go to techblogwriter.co.uk and click on Daniel Burris.
Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, as many of you know, I used to frequent the world of IT and live events. And before I left that world behind, there was a huge increase in companies offering solutions to track customers at live events and conferences via that free Wi-Fi that they logged into, and a variety of analytics and data around crowd behaviour were generated that many of you probably just don't even think about. But of course, this year, the hospitality industry has had a particularly rough time of it. And I find myself thinking about how those in the industry now have very different needs and need something else from the data generated inside venues than they did at the beginning of the year. Now, Inpixon is an indoor data intelligence company that is providing contact tracing solutions to companies, schools, offices and governments to provide them with indoor mapping analytics that can pinpoint potential threats. And the truth, of course, is they do a lot more than that. And they distinguish between online users in a specific space using 3 to 5 meter accuracy and making it a preventative tool to avoid cross-contamination in public spaces. So I invited their CEO, Nadir Ali, to come on here and speak about how these sectors can return to normal amid uncertainty and also the increasing role of indoor data intelligence. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to California so we can speak with Nadir Ali, CEO of Inpixon. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Neil. Thanks for having me on. So I'm, Nadir Ali, CEO of Inpixon. I've lived in the Bay Area here in Silicon Valley most of my life since I went to UC Berkeley for my undergrad. I live here with my wife and 3 kids that keep us quite busy. And I've been in the IT business for, over 20 plus years now. So it's been longer than it seems, right? And in terms of what we do, I'm CEO of Inpixon, and we are a indoor intelligence company. And we can talk a little bit about what that means, but essentially got into that, because I've always been an entrepreneur. I was raised like one. My father's been an entrepreneur since he was a teenager. So I did do this strategy consulting thing for a while out of college, but quickly realized I wanted to be in my own business. And so I've done a few different businesses, but been in IT here in the Valley for 20 plus years.
And like you said, Inpixon does turn location data into actionable indoor intelligence. But I'm conscious for people that are tuning in and hearing about you guys for the first time, could I ask that you possibly set the scene and tell them a little bit more about what that means and the kind of problems that you're solving with this tech?
Sure. So, if you think about GPS for a second, right? And what happens in the outdoor location world and location-based services and how that's transformed, right? from how GPS technology was originally used to now it's probably on 20 some different apps on your phone, right? And so think about that and imagine that coming indoors, because GPS doesn't really work very well indoors. And so what we do is indoor positioning, which is what we started with, right? So when I've been in the IT business, as I mentioned, for a while, and living in Silicon Valley, I'm surrounded by these exciting startups that have products and technologies. And so we wanted to build something of our own as well, instead of just being a systems integration company or a reseller. And so we found this company called Air Patrol that had basic location sensor technology. There were sensors that you would deploy indoors in your office space, or could be an airport, could be a hotel. And they basically are passive listening devices that detect radio frequency signals that our phones emit or other wireless devices emit. And so these kind of act as the satellites that you would imagine in GPS for locationing. And so our sensors do the same sort of thing, and they locate where that signal is coming from, or device, which could be a proxy for a person or an asset. And so that helps us locate people or things or whatever, all anonymously, right? And we're just seeing signals. And we use that information for a variety of use cases. So it could be security applications, marketing applications, et cetera, to help our customers solve certain problems. And what really got me excited about it was when I met that company, they were just solving a real-time security problem. So, government agencies, you're probably familiar, they have no cell phone zone. So they just want to make sure no one's bringing a cell phone into a certain area. But they weren't capturing any of the data. And so that's what we started looking at, is how could we capture that data and provide more insight and intelligence to those customers to be able to act on. So whether it's a security alert because somebody accidentally or intentionally brings in a device in an area they shouldn't, or some other ways that we can talk about.
And if we were to go back to 2019, 12 months ago, I suspect that as customers, both of our needs and wants have changed dramatically over the last 12 months. I'm curious, what was your primary focus before the pandemic? It probably seems like a lifetime away now, but can you remember what your primary focus was before that pandemic hit?
Yeah, I mean, it's... look, we definitely existed before the pandemic, and we'll continue to offer solutions after the pandemic. But yeah, before the pandemic, the use cases were more focused around, security and safety. So we have solutions for the government agencies that I mentioned, but also for school safety, right? Unfortunately, here in the U.S., we have had a history of campus shootings, things like that, and not only in schools but in corporations as well. And so, God forbid there's a scenario like that or some sort of natural disaster, then knowing where your students or faculty or employees are and where a potential threat may be, are ways that we provide security use cases. So we were doing things like that, and certainly then asset tracking is another way that indoor locationing technology can be used. So where you're provisioning assets, where you might have assets so you can find them when you need them. But also, our mapping product was heavy into retail and hospitality. So on the mapping side, we were helping our customers with, getting from point A to point B. So just like you use Google Maps or Waze or Apple Maps in the outdoors, think about, large indoor spaces, right? If you've ever tried to navigate one of the hotels or resorts in Las Vegas, or a convention center, or the airport, right? So finding your way in these indoor spaces is something else that we can also help our customers with, combining the location with indoor maps and really being able to deliver that to customers. So lots of different use cases, things like even building management systems, making companies more green or eco-friendly, right? By using occupancy data to make their systems more efficient. So I could go on. We've got tons of use cases on the website.
The main reason I asked that question was because, again, I'm curious, how have you seen your clients' needs evolve since the arrival of the pandemic, and how are you now helping them? Has there been any big changes?
Yeah, certainly. And, for our customers, for us as well, when the shelter in place first happened with the pandemic, everyone was at home, right? And we weren't in these spaces, and people started to think about how is the workplace going to change? And so we've immediately, credit to my team, started thinking about how can we help during this time, right? And how can we help reopen businesses and get back to work and get the economies going? And so that's what we started thinking about. And so we helped using the same data, using our same, positioning products and our mapping and our analytics to deliver what we call workplace readiness. And so basically that was to help companies, and it could be hotels or resorts or airports, but help people understand, how can we make these spaces safer when employees do return? So we've had lots of conversations and engaging with customers around, okay, when your employees come back to work, right? And even if it's staggered or they're working remote several days a week and then coming in, how can you monitor for social distancing? How can you monitor for occupancy density and send in the janitorial crew when maybe X number of people, whether it's employees or customers or visitors, have gone through a certain location? And then also even for contact tracing. So contact tracing, we know, is really effective. And you hear stories in Taiwan and South Korea and other places where contact tracing has been helpful in reducing transmission. So we think of it as a enterprise level contact tracing solution using this indoor data. So, if one of your employees tests positive and calls in, then you can go back and see where that employee may have been in, the conference room area, or which cafeteria, or who else might have been in proximity during these last 14 days where they might have been exposed, and then really help our customers, minimize transmission. So if we can minimize transition in the workplace, it minimizes it with those families and then certainly with the communities. And so one of our vision is to do good with indoor data. And I just can't think of a more, relevant, appropriate solution where we can help, not only the customers that we're working with, but also the communities around us. So we're pretty, excited about supporting that effort. And that really, invigorated the team to go out and do that. So we've been working with companies that way. And certainly as you have those conversations, what's interesting is it's now opened up their eyes to the value of indoor data, right? And so now they're thinking, so now I can also use this data for asset tracking and or other security use cases. So I think it's been interesting because people that weren't thinking about indoor intelligence are now starting to think about that and realizing that there's value in this type of data.
I think it's also worth highlighting that Inpixon distinguishes between online users in a specific space using 3 to 5 meter accuracy. So do you have any use cases, though, that you could share that just help listeners understand how your tech is used in so many different building types? Yeah,
and actually with a recent acquisition and some of the ultra wideband technology that we've been working with, where we can even get down to 30 centimeter accuracy, depending, if there's ultra wideband tags being deployed. So the range varies, and the use cases then are driven by, the type of technology you're using, right? So if you think about Wi-Fi detection and using those types of sensors or existing access points that companies may have, that will be in the 5 to 10 meters. Our proprietary sensors using Wi-Fi and other technologies get down to 1 to 3 meters, but then our latest is ultra wideband, and you get to centimeter level accuracy. Those drive different use cases. So, for example, if I really need precise locationing, now some of our workers, because of the pandemic, are thinking, I want to be able to have my employees reserve a particular desk, right? When they connect and want to come into the office when it's safe to do so, or I want to track particular assets. And so you need that accuracy. So those use cases will move towards those tag technologies. Other use cases where the accuracy is not as critical, and you're just trying to generate maybe a heat map to understand some level of occupancy, or the pathways people might be using generally. What we used to use for retail heat maps to understand traffic patterns in a mall can now be used to understand, traffic patterns in a, corporate environment or a hospital or airport to see, how things are moving and making them intelligent. It used to be, maybe point A to point B, we're focused on what's the shortest way to get there. Today might be what's the least crowded way to get there, right? And so using these technologies to adjust for use cases in that perspective, and then it certainly can go into other types of work environments as well. If you think about factories, we have customers in mining for making sure that they don't leave any men behind, or if God forbid something happens, then where their folks are. And we're in livestock and a variety of other verticals.
And for any techies that might be listening out there, can you tell me a little bit more about the technology that makes all this possible?
Sure. So a couple of key components, right? So we have sensors, as I mentioned in the beginning. These are passive listening devices. They look like an access point. And then we have some smaller ones that are pods that are, listening for various types of signals. So radio frequency signals, whether it's cellular, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, ultra wideband, and then they trilaterate those signals to really, detect the location. And we, depending on the type of technology and RF frequency you're listening to, the accuracy, as I touched on earlier, varies. And then we have a bunch of positioning engines that do those calculations. So we've got multiple methodologies, TDOA, time difference of arrival, time of flight, RSSI, that help us then, locate those devices or assets and then position them on a map. And so what we've got is a really interactive map that's multi-layered, profile-based. So IT may have a view of the map that shows them where all of their IT equipment and cables are, but marketing has a different view of the map that has, a heat map or shows correlation between, store A and store B. The security team might have a different map that's integrated with the camera system and showing them where, people are and or shouldn't be, right, or devices that shouldn't be in these no cell phone zone, things like that. As we then capture that data, we then have an analytics platform that provides, actionable insights and does predictive analytics and really helps take that data. But we can also incorporate other third-party data into our platform as well. So we've had customers wanting to integrate weather data, and if you're a shopping mall, and see how that impacts traffic patterns in your location, or you may have point of sale data or other types of big data sources that can then be integrated and used with location, because location is such an important context of who we are, what we're doing, why we're there, right? And so that becomes really important.
And I appreciate you probably can't share too much, but is there anything else you can tell us about other cutting edge technology breakthroughs that you might be working on and how you think they will help people in the following year ahead?
Yeah. So we certainly are, continuously innovating on our positioning algorithms. We're looking at 3D maps and AR, VR, and bringing that technology into this. So imagine, I mentioned booking a desk or a conference room, but now being able to visualize that, right? And if you're planning collaboration activities and picking certain areas, or walking through a factory and having, augmented reality play a role to provide instructions to the factory worker, or, different ways. So we're looking at how do we bring those elements into some of our use cases. And so you'll hear some, progress on that as into the coming year. But yes, constantly innovating on incorporating on the analytics side with AI and machine learning. The goal is to really harness the power of all this indoor data and intelligence that we can deliver to customers. And so I think there's many ways to really make our phones, what we call smartphones, right, truly smart, and other connected devices, so that they can really serve us better as we move from one location to the next without necessarily having to ask for certain information. And so have it being served up. I'm a bit of a Trekkie fan, so I think about, how we can kind of bring the future to today. And so we're thinking about how can we use this data to really improve the experience as customers walk through various types of indoor spaces.
Can't beat a good Trekkie reference. You're in good company there. But I am curious, again, you've been in this business for a long time, but are you noticing an increase in the appreciation of the value around indoor data and the many ways that it can help businesses with their operations? Are you noticing that increase now?
We certainly are, and it's starting to. We had early adopters, right, when we first started working on this technology, but now, and I will say, with COVID especially, it's opened people's eyes to how important this data is, this information is, and how many different ways it can be used. So we are seeing, an increase, but you'll also see from the analysts, right? So no matter which market research report you look at, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's growing at double-digit growth rates, and so certainly seeing an increase in the appreciation and understanding of indoor data.
We are starting to see the emergence of a vaccine now. How do you think your customers' needs will further evolve in 2021? Is that something you can expand on too?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's great that a vaccine's on the horizon and it's moved so quickly. So that's really reassuring, but it will take time to roll out. And so I think, we still need to be vigilant. We still have a need to be ensuring that our places of work and live and play are all safe, right? And so to us, we certainly think that providing the ability to manage occupancy density as we go through this process of rolling out the vaccine, and then even beyond, right? We don't want to be caught shorthanded, God forbid, the next time this happens, or if there's a mutation and or other security use cases. And again, as I said, we were offering and helping our customers with security use cases before the pandemic. So I think it's customers are now realizing that it's not just about COVID. And so they're going to continue to think about other ways that our platform can help them for security, for marketing, for operations.
And for anyone that would like to explore those areas or how you can help or investigate more about the kind of technology that you're using, can you remind everyone listening of where they can find you online and also contact your team if they do have any questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's inpixon.com. I'll spell that INP as in Paul, IXON.com. And certainly you'll find us on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. But we, would recommend folks just, reaching out and happy to have an initial conversation. We can, pretty quickly tell you if indoor intelligence makes sense for you and your business and how to get started.
I love what you're doing here and how you're leveraging indoor data intelligence. But not just that, I think it's incredibly impressive, the wide range of businesses that you're helping there, whether it be companies, schools, offices and governments, etc., and how you're all leveraging technology to help pinpoint any potential threat. It's incredibly cool what you're doing there. So I'd love to stay in touch with you, see how that journey goes next year. But more than anything, just a big thank you for sharing it with me today.
Great. Well, thank you for having me, Neil. Great talking to you.
When you're walking through a busy shopping mall, sports stadium, or in fact any indoor building with free Wi-Fi and cameras in the sky, I suspect you don't think about all that data that's being generated from our movements, to even our purchases and length of stay in the car park and social media activity. But learning more about the insights generated by indoor data intelligence is nothing short of fascinating. And I must admit, I am the guy that when I walk around at a venue for the first time, I do find myself looking for the wireless arrays and take a peek behind the curtain that brings that experience to life. But if you've got any comments about indoor data intelligence or anything that we've talked about today, or indeed on any episode that you've listened to recently, I invite you to connect with me directly. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Just look for me at Neil C. Hughes. Send me an email if you want an old school message coming my way. Send that to techblogwriter@outlook.com. And my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. So keep those messages coming through. I'll be back tomorrow. I've got another guest already lined up for you all. But more than anything, I just want to take a quick time out to say a genuine thank you for tuning into this podcast each and every day. It does mean more than you possibly realise. So thank you so much for being a big part of this show. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.